Hidden deep within a decaying 1996 Japanese Laserdisc lies a frame that shouldn't exist. While digitizing this rare analog signal, we uncovered a distorted, hyper-realistic face buried inside the spirit bomb's kinetic energy. This isn't just a glitch, it's a visual anomaly that defies every rule of traditional cell animation.
Midnight Archive found this one.
For nearly 3 decades, collectors have searched for what many believe is the highest quality home release of Dragon Ball Z ever created. Not a Blu-ray, not a DVD, and not a modern remaster, but a rare Japanese Laserdisc released in 1996, known among collectors only as the Z edition. The problem was finding it. Most Laserdisc players automatically correct signal errors during playback. Tiny flaws are smoothed over before reaching the display. If the rumored frame existed, those corrections might erase it completely. So researchers began building unusual hardware configurations, modified players, signal processors, professional capture cards, equipment originally designed for television broadcast archives. The goal wasn't to watch the episode. The goal was to access the raw signal itself. Every field, every scan line, every hidden artifact buried inside the recording. Most attempts ended in failure. Frame after frame revealed nothing unusual. Months became years. The legend slowly faded into internet folklore. But then, in early 2026, discussion began appearing on obscure preservation forums. Collectors started referencing something called the terminal frame. No screenshots were posted. No captures were shared. Only cryptic comments. Comments claiming that a single frame hidden during the spirit bomb sequence appeared different depending on how the signal was decoded. Some described a distorted face. Others claimed to see a completely different image. And a few insisted the frame wasn't animation at all. Nobody could prove the terminal frame existed. Every alleged capture disappeared. Links went dead. Archives vanished. Threads were deleted. And eventually, the story became another forgotten internet mystery, at least until one collector claimed to have located an original Z edition Laserdisc in near-perfect condition. A copy untouched since the 1990s. When the disc arrived, the restoration process began immediately. Hours of calibration followed. Signal stabilization, frame reconstruction, error correction analysis, everything leading to a single moment. The spirit bomb sequence. The exact location where collectors believed the terminal frame was hidden. And what appeared next was something nobody expected. The restoration software wasn't searching for hidden messages. It was designed to recover damaged analog video, frame by frame, field by field. It reconstructed information that had remained buried inside the original Laserdisc for nearly 30 years. The first few thousand frames looked exactly as expected. Minor analog noise, tiny color shifts, occasional tape instability inherited from the original production master. Nothing unusual. Then, the spirit bomb sequence began. The massive sphere of energy expanded across the screen, its bright light consuming almost every detail in the image. At first, everything appeared completely normal, until one technician noticed something impossible. One single frame contained nearly twice the amount of encoded visual information as every frame surrounding it. It wasn't damaged, it wasn't corrupted, it was different. The team isolated the frame, then enlarged it. 200%. Nothing. 400%. Still nothing. At 800%. Small geometric distortions began appearing inside the spirit bomb's energy. At first, they resembled compression artifacts. Except Laserdiscs don't use digital compression. Every analyst reached the same conclusion. Those shapes were part of the original analog recording itself. The software continued enhancing the image. Each restoration pass revealed slightly more detail, tiny shadows, curved lines, dark regions that shouldn't have existed inside an object made entirely of light. Then, someone paused the restoration. No one spoke, because for just a moment, the random distortion seemed to resemble a human face. It lasted less than 1/30th of a second. Too fast for the human eye, too subtle to notice during normal playback. But once isolated, the shape became impossible to ignore. The eyes appeared first, then the outline of a nose, a mouth, not smiling, not screaming, simply staring directly toward the camera. The room fell silent. Nobody wanted to say what they were thinking, because if this wasn't a random pattern, if this image had truly been embedded inside the original animation, then someone had placed it there intentionally. And that raised an even more disturbing question. If this hidden frame had survived unnoticed since 1996, what else was still hiding inside the signal? The frame was exported directly from the raw Laserdisc capture. No AI enhancement, no reconstruction, no modern filters. Only the untouched analog signal preserved since 1996. To eliminate the possibility of hardware error, the team repeated the capture again and again. 5 complete transfers, 5 different Laserdisc players, 3 professional capture cards. Every result was identical. Frame 742,318 always contained the same hidden anomaly. That meant one thing. Whatever they were seeing had been recorded onto the master itself. It wasn't created by the player. It wasn't introduced during restoration. It had existed for nearly 30 years. Next, the analysts examined the signal one scan line at a time. Instead of viewing a complete frame, they isolated each horizontal line individually. Thousands of scan lines, one after another. Most contained exactly what should have been there: color, brightness, motion. Then, scan line 263, unlike every line surrounding it, this one contained additional luminance information, tiny variations, perfectly aligned, almost intentional. When reconstructed separately, those invisible variations formed an image no ordinary television would ever display. Not because it was hidden, but because it existed between normal playback fields, a place most viewers would never see. The reconstructed image wasn't complete. Large sections were missing. Other portions appeared distorted by analog interference. Yet several features remained unmistakable. 2 perfectly symmetrical eyes, a narrow nose, an expressionless mouth. The proportions looked almost human. But something wasn't right. The face contained no visible skin texture, no pores, no eyelashes. Almost as though it had never been photographed, only assembled from light itself. One analyst quietly compared it to a death mask. Another called it a visual echo. No one could explain why it appeared only inside a single frame, or why it vanished immediately afterward. Then someone noticed something even stranger. The anomaly wasn't perfectly stationary. Comparing multiple captures revealed microscopic differences, not random noise. Movement, less than a single pixel, far too small to notice during playback, yet measurable. Every restoration pass placed the eyes in slightly different positions, as though the image wasn't fixed inside the frame, but reacting to the decoding process itself. The room became noticeably quieter. Nobody suggested another explanation, because there wasn't one. The only certainty was that every new scan produced a slightly different result. By midnight, the investigators stopped trying to prove the anomaly existed. Instead, they began asking a different question. If one hidden image could survive unnoticed inside an analog master, how many others had escaped detection? Every reel, every production tape, every Laserdisc, every forgotten archive. How many secrets were still waiting inside signals nobody had examined closely enough? The spirit bomb sequence remained frozen on the monitor, silent, motionless, watching. And as another restoration pass completed, the software highlighted something new. Not another face, not another frame. A sequence of tiny geometric marks buried inside the surrounding analog noise, perfectly spaced, almost like a code. The symbols weren't random. Every restoration pass produced the exact same geometric pattern. Tiny white marks hidden beneath the analog noise floor, invisible during normal playback. The team exported the signal directly into forensic software designed for recovering damaged broadcast recordings. No filters, no artificial intelligence. Just the raw analog information preserved inside the disc. One by one, the symbols were isolated. At first, they looked meaningless, simple squares, short lines, broken triangles, until someone noticed their spacing. Every symbol was perfectly aligned, not to the image, but to the timing of the analog video signal itself. Whatever had created the pattern understood exactly how analog video worked. Hours passed. The software continued separating every scan line, every timing pulse, every burst of hidden analog information. Then, one investigator disabled the image preview entirely. Instead of watching the picture, they watched the synchronization data. That's when something impossible appeared. The sync pulses weren't perfectly uniform. One section, lasting less than a fraction of a second, contained a repeating sequence. Not damage, not tape deterioration, a pattern, repeating every few scan lines. The room grew quiet, because analog video isn't supposed to contain intentional repeating structures like this. Not unless someone placed them there. The repeating sequence was converted into a simple black and white grid, one row at a time. 32 rows, 64 columns. Slowly, an image emerged. Not a complete photograph. More like an outline, a silhouette. Someone standing perfectly still. Its proportions looked almost human. Its shoulders, slightly too narrow. Its arms, slightly too long. And where its face should have been, there was only darkness, no features, no expression. Only an empty shape, staring outward from the reconstructed signal. Nobody in the room spoke. The archive software automatically compared the reconstructed silhouette against previous scans. No matches, It wasn't part of the animation. It wasn't generated by the restoration tools. It wasn't found anywhere else on the disc. Only here. Only inside this single fragment of recovered analog data. The team checked every possibility: hardware malfunction, electrical interference, signal reflection, capture error. Nothing explained why every independent transfer produced the exact same hidden outline. Whatever they had recovered had survived inside the recording for decades, waiting. Then, the oldest investigator in the room quietly opened a sealed archive folder. Inside were handwritten restoration notes from an earlier preservation project. Most pages documented ordinary calibration procedures, until the final entry. There, written in fading ink, were 4 words: "Do not decode fully." No explanation, no signature, no date, just those words. The room fell silent once again. No one remembered placing the folder there. No one could determine who had written the warning. Yet it appeared to reference the exact investigation unfolding decades later. The monitors continued displaying the recovered silhouette, motionless, silent, waiting. Then, without warning, every screen briefly lost synchronization. The image distorted. The silhouette disappeared, and in its place, for less than a single frame, something else flashed across every monitor simultaneously. Before anyone could stop playback, the signal corrected itself. Whatever had appeared or was gone. Only one thing remained. A timestamp burned into the recording: 3:13:07. The investigators stared at the numbers. None of them recognized their significance. Not yet. But every recovered file from this point forward would reference the same impossible time. Every archive has rules. Most exist to preserve history. Some exist to protect evidence. This archive was created to hide something. The timestamp, 3:13:07, appeared nowhere else in the database. No catalog entry, no restoration notes, no maintenance logs, only one encrypted folder. It had remained unopened for years. When investigators finally accessed the file, they expected another damaged recording. Instead, they found surveillance footage, a preservation laboratory, rows of CRT monitors, an empty room. The timestamp matched exactly: 3:13:07. Nothing moved. For nearly 30 seconds. The room remained perfectly still. Then, without warning, every monitor switched on, not one after another, all at once. Each displayed the same geometric pattern recovered from the damaged signal. No operator entered the room. No scheduled playback existed. According to the system logs, the laboratory had been closed for hours. Yet something had activated every display simultaneously. The surveillance camera captured only one additional anomaly: a faint shadow crossing between the monitors. Too distorted to identify, gone before the next frame. Investigators enhanced the footage repeatedly. The shadow never became clearer. Instead, each enhancement introduced new distortion, almost as if the recording resisted restoration. One analyst noticed something unusual. The figure never reflected light. It appeared darker than the surrounding darkness itself. Frame by frame, it crossed the room, then stopped, directly in front of the center monitor. The video ended. No shutdown, no camera failure, just an abrupt ending, as though the recording itself had been interrupted. The final page of the archive contained one instruction: no explanation, no author, only a warning. If recovery reaches this point, Stop decoding. No one in the room moved. The monitors continued humming. The recovered pattern remained frozen on every screen. The investigation had begun with damaged analog media. Now, it had become something else entirely. Whatever had been hidden inside the archive had survived decades of neglect, and investigators had only recovered a fraction of it. The remaining file were still sealed